There it is, a new look at the gameplay of League of Legends Wild Rift. You probably have some questions about this game, and I'm happy now to welcome Brian from the Wild Rift team at Riot. How you doing, Brian?
I'm doing great. Really happy to be here. Super excited to talk about Wild Rift. It's been real looking forward to the moment where players can finally sort of get an in-depth look of the game. So really stoked to be here.
I know, League of Legends, obviously a massive global game. Last year for Riot Anniversary, you announced Wild Rift, which is something that fans of League have been asking for years, having a mobile version of the game. It is also coming. This will be the version that will come to consoles, and for some people, this may be the first time they probably know about League, but are hearing about Wild Rift. So let's maybe rewind back a little bit and talk about sort of philosophically what this game is. And I know Riot has always viewed this not as let's port League of Legends to mobile, but let's build a new League experience from the ground up with some of the same DNA and champions and gameplay you've come to love. But, as that you said in the video, kind of designed for, the dual sort of stick approach. Can you maybe explain a little bit about like the design philosophy of like where you began and where you've ended up?
Oh, sure. So I think playing League of Legends on other platforms has been something that League of Legends players have asked for and wanted for a really long time now, for all sorts of reasons. Whether that's just fits into their lifestyle better, or it's time constraints, or a lot of people just don't even have access to a PC anymore. And so it's something we've always really wanted to support for a really long time. It's just taken us a while to get there. League is a really, really deep, hardcore strategic PvP game, and so for a long time we struggled with how do we actually translate that? How do we keep that depth? How do we keep that sort of longevity, that mastery, that really compelling core gameplay onto some of these other platforms? And I think we've finally gotten there with Wild Rift. Obviously, we'd love to sort of get the feedback from players in the alpha as we go. But I think for folks who have always been interested in League, this is going to be like the perfect opportunity to jump in fresh. I've done a lot of stuff to make this really accessible, make it more engaging and stuff for players. If you've never played League, but you've always been interested in the lore, the IP, the esports scene, anything, now is going to be a perfect opportunity to jump in fresh.
So we know the games are going to be shorter. It's defined for mobile. Can you talk about some of the core design principles about how this differs from a traditional League of Legends game?
Yeah, so from a design philosophy standpoint, there's a couple things. At its core, we really want to make sure the games are shortened to about 15 to 20 minutes on average, whereas on PC, you're looking at about 30 to 35 minutes on average. We want to make sure that it's, something that you can fit in over a 30-minute lunch break, for example, or if you're on the train or on a commute, you can get a game in, and we think that's really, really cool and compelling. So we want to make sure that the game time accommodates the new platforms. So from a design standpoint, it was super critical for all of us on the League team that we maintained the feel and the core gameplay of League of Legends. This means all the things that you're used to, the laning phase, the mid game, the end game, those cool team fights, those sieges, all of that stuff still really had to be there. And I think it's really easy if you're saying, hey, we need to make the games half as short, you just cut the back end of the game off. As an example. That's something we really, really wanted to avoid. And so instead of trying to target and sort of remove phases, we want to try to preserve as much as we possibly can, just kind of push each individual component onto a shorter and tighter timeline. So something like the laning phase is only going to last about 3 to 5 minutes, whereas it might last more like 5 to 8 minutes on League PC.
Wow. And, even champions, you've had to make some changes to some of their gameplay. I mean, everyone that plays League knows there's obviously, there's a lot going on with, mouse and keyboard and how people are playing those champions. So, you have some of the same champions we saw in the video. A lot of them are moving over to Wild Rift, but you're slightly tweaking some of the gameplay, right?
Yes. Yeah. So the biggest change that folks will feel immediately is just the controls change, right? Playing on a mouse and keyboard is just fundamentally different than playing on a phone or on a controller. Right. And so we've really had to do a number of changes to really kind of tweak and optimize these characters to get all the really cool moments, all the really cool combos, all the really cool kind of outplays and highlight moments that you would expect on a mouse and keyboard setup onto that twin stick control scheme. So I think hopefully, and we'll see how folks respond to the alpha, the vast majority of the changes that we've made actually shouldn't even be felt by players, right? Because it's actually trying to capture that same feel. There are definitely some feelable changes, and we can go into those on kind of a character-by-character basis. We'll have a lot of those infos that we've already talked about, and we'll continue to talk about those in the future. But really, we're hoping that most of the changes are actually unnoticed, and that players who are familiar with the game can pick it up and jump straight in and just immediately start having fun.
Right, and that's, I'm sure the balance is like creating something that existing players, feel fits in with the play style that they've learned and built with League, but then also inviting to all these other players that haven't maybe played League, or want to learn how to play League or have more time to play League now that they can play it on the go.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah.
You mentioned controllers, and I was curious about the console version, which we know is in development. We were talking before, and you said you're working on it now. We know, mobile is kind of the focus this year, and console will come down the road. But is console being developed kind of in stream with the mobile version? Does it come later? Can you maybe talk a bit about that?
So I'm not going to go into too much detail on console. Obviously, mobile is going to be first, and console will be later. But obviously, we have teams working on all the platforms that we're aiming to support, and so obviously it is still in development. It's still working on it. It's coming along well, but we're just not ready to release any kind of timeline on that kind of stuff yet.
Yep, but it is obviously, because you talked about sort of twin sticks and controllers, and the idea of the control scheme is much more similar, obviously, on console to mobile than to PC.
Oh, right. And even from day one on this project, when I started a couple of years ago now, all of our control specs, even on the very first version of the mobile build, we were designing it for controller and touchscreen as well. This has been designed to really support all the platforms. Right,
and some people, I'm sure, will probably play this with a controller on their phone too, if they want, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think I don't have the distance of which peripherals will support or not yet, but yeah, it's absolutely meant to be functional at any kind of controller.
I feel people will Bluetooth in somehow or find some way to optimize for the most competitive game. And on PC, everyone split seconds count, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of people trying to learn the best way to play this on mobile. You've been working on League for a long time at Riot, I think close to a decade, right? Sort of building this across all these platforms. What excites you and the team the most about this version? Is it the idea that it'll be more accessible to more people? Is it that players, as you said, lifestyle-wise, that they're going to be able to be a part of League more often? What's driving you? What's exciting to you?
So I think there's a couple things. I think if I sort of boil it down to two main points that are really exciting, I think for the first one is this is just a version of League of Legends that a lot of players, both on the dev team and players that I've personally interacted with and talked with for years now, even since I started, they just can't fit League into their current lifestyle for any kind of thing, but they really, really, really want to play. And I think Wild Rift is the perfect opportunity to really scratch that itch, kind of go back, pick up your favorite champion and have an amazing game experience that we wouldn't be able to do in any other way. And then the second thing is, and this one, I didn't initially jump in having this level of sort of attachment to, but the more I've done it, the more I've realized how critically important this is, which is basically the social play component. Mobile in particular is a phenomenal platform for social play. There's nothing quite like sort of having a LAN party in your pocket and just sitting down at a table over dinner and playing with 3 to 4 different friends, right? Something along those lines. It's really magical, and we really want to make sure that we support and encourage that level of play, because there's really nothing else like it, and this is a really unique opportunity for players.
And how will it work with progression? Obviously there'll be console, there'll be mobile, PC. You'll have the same account across everything, or how will that work in terms of how players kind of enter this community and obviously want to bring over a lot of your friends from PC? How is that all going to work?
So there's sort of two components to that. The first one is obviously we're open to crossplay, and we think that would be a really cool opportunity. But we're not quite ready to announce sort of what will work and how it will work yet. But the core gameplay for all the platforms will functionally be the same. So if nothing else, you'll be able to pick up and sort of your skills should transfer, all the stuff. It will be very, very familiar. We're not doing drastically different versions for different platforms. Yep. On the other side, obviously, we are going to be basically giving sort of a big booster thank you present for folks who, if you have invested time in League PC previously, there will be an option to sort of link your accounts, and we'll give you some good stuff and sort of a head start to get yourself in.
Oh, cool.
But we definitely also want to make sure that we're being just generally very generous in terms of how easy it is to acquire champions, what's the barrier of entry, how easy it is to jump in and just to really start playing. We want to make supportive for both new players and for veteran players.
And are you seeing a scenario where on the champion side, it'll be a subset always of the PC game, or will you have unique champions that will exist just in Wild Rift down the road?
So it's definitely possible. We don't have any current plans for that, but I definitely wouldn't leave it off the table. I think there are a lot of things. It's a very unique opportunity to sort of design something for the twin stick control scheme from the ground up. So we're definitely open to doing that. However, right now there's 140 something champions on League PC, and so we've got about, I think, 36 in the alpha. Yeah. So. And we're definitely not going to get all 140, but there's a large backlog of champions that we know that we really want to bring over and make sure that we support as many players as possible to bring their mains over. Even if
that's part of the thing in the video. I mean, always a debate about which champions will be in this, and those I'm sure are the throwdown meetings or video conferences now about making the list, right, and selecting. How do you go about picking those? I mean, part of it is, I'm sure, balance and diversity, but how did you go about picking the 36 that you're kind of leading with?
So there's a number of things. So first and foremost, we wanted to make sure that at a core layer, we had enough distribution across roles, across play styles, across gameplay types, so we just don't overload a particular position or a particular type of play. The second one on there is really for control scheme. So we wanted to make sure we initially brought over a couple champions that we thought would really work well on twin stick controls. And so it's like, okay, let's just get some real solid wins. Can this work, right? And we sort of tested that. And so those were some of the first champions we brought over. Sort of the second wave was actually a series of champions that we thought would be really, really hard. Slash, we weren't even sure if we could do it, even on the twin stick controls. Like, could you still pull off some of the same sick plays that you can on mouse and keyboard for some of these really high skill cap champions like Yasuo or Zed? And so we really kind of pushed our boundaries and brought some of those folks over, and we got most of them to work really well. So that's kind of how we started and how we kind of finished, and then now we're kind of at a cool middle ground where we have a little bit more freedom and flexibility of who we bring over.
Yep, and lots of feedback from the players. As folks heard in the video, this is really a reveal of more of the gameplay, and then starting very soon, next week in Brazil and Philippines, you'll start testing with kind of a small number of players, and so a lot of people watch this video and want to get in, and right now the message is just wait, right? I mean, you're going to slowly kind of ramp more people in across the year.
Yeah, unfortunately, we can't let everybody in right now, especially for here. Obviously, we're trying to test the core gameplay. We're trying to test a lot of the core initiatives, but we're also really trying to test like server stability and infrastructure as well. And so for that, we really make sure that we have a really like narrow focus test to make sure that we can really deliver on all these things so that when we do bring in more folks, things go smoothly. We're not dealing with a lot of like network latency, packet loss, a lot of those kind of issues. We can also iron out a lot of the mobile specific issues as well that we really care a lot about. Like data usage is huge for us. Same with like battery life and that kind of stuff. And so we really make sure that we get our experimentation done early before we bring in, thousands of players.
Well, I'm sure there'll be a lot of content creators in those markets that people around the world will be watching as they get to play around with it over the next few weeks and experiment. So you're still on track for, I think you said 2020 at some point. The goal is still to get it out to everybody?
Yeah, we haven't announced a formal release date, but we're still running on track, and it's definitely still the goal, yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, it looks great and such a huge opportunity. League is really, I think, one of the biggest games in the world in terms of the number of people that play it. And PC is a massive market, but I think the fact that this is coming to mobile and console, and you have taken your time to build a new, different experience, but with the DNA of League is fantastic. And some of the pre-registration numbers that I've seen on this on mobile certainly suggest there's huge global interest in this. And, even mobile games, I think people sometimes look at them and say, hey, how do these fit into the industry? And they're massive. And I think, you and the team, a lot of folks that worked on the PC game, obviously moved over to mobile, and it looks phenomenal. I mean, the phones are so powerful now, and this all rolling into console is really exciting as well. So I'm sure there's lots more to do, but impressive you guys are doing your tech test from a work-from-home situation. So we'll be watching the streams next week, and can't wait to see what's next for Wild Rift. Thanks, Brian.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Really looking forward to folks' feedback, and thanks for having me.
Yes, we'll see you soon.